Now, when it comes to the political aspect, I had someone here, my colleague, he was talking about some of these empowerment programs that we've been attending. I have been part of them. We've been going right, across the country, supporting our own friends in some of the programs. Because if I have a program in my constituency and I invite you, like I'm doing an empowerment program, what is so wrong if I invite my friends, including the Speaker of the National Assembly or Deputy President? Is there anything wrong? Did the rampage just start yesterday? This has been there all time, long time ago. That has also happened in my constituency, and it has changed the lives of the people. I know you would say that there are other programs that need to be done, but if I find that as one of the ways that we keep even selling the programs of government, talking about the simple things like SHA that people need to register, other programs that government is doing, we get the opportunity now to engage the locals and tell them some of the things government is doing. So this is some of the things that we've been doing when we be going around the country. Now, of course, there are some of those sad events that have happened, the Saba Mandamanus, that at some point blow our minds as well. When we see, trying to really objectively understand what are the motives of some of these Mandamanus that goes into destruction of properties of people, which pains. And along the course, we have the statistics. By the way, I was told over 635 police officers in this country were injured. Right? I know we keep talking about the other bit, the emotional bit that we begin creating, that this happened. And most of these officers, by the time they were being injured, they also had, the arms and everything that they are supposed to use. But most of them were restraining themselves not to use this. So that when we want to create now emotions of people, which I really feel so bad when I see parents crying because they've lost their loved ones. When I hear even the story of Juliet Njoki, that my colleague here is trying to create emotions around it. But when you even hear also, when autopsy is being done, there was nothing that, that seems to put like this girl was tortured, somewhat. But people want to create emotions. There was a big problem in Njoki over the same, only to realize later, indeed, those are just imaginary creations of people. But I want to say that it was quite sad what happened, the destruction of property, the wanton destruction of property, the pain I saw business people who employ in excess of 200, 500 people having to lose, which means then that there are so many families, young people, who don't have jobs right now on account of the same. So it brings also an aspect that we are trying to say as a country, can we have a discussion? If there are problems, can we talk about them? Do we need to go destroy people's property? So that when police, and then we gag the police officers. Why would you want to destroy this country? Because when you gag the police officers, they are not able to act. I have told you, over 635 police officers, some
Nandi is a member of Parliament, Bernard Kitur, has strongly defended William Ruto's administration, highlighting recent progress in job creation, foreign labor export, and efforts to maintain discipline within the law enforcement during recent public protests. Speaking during an interview on the Insider on TV47, MP Kitur emphasized that most police officers had exercised restraint in dealing with protesters, particularly during the recent youth-led demonstration. He noted that despite the tension, many officers refrained from using their firearm, suggesting this was a sign of growing professionalism and improved police accountability. On the issue of public dialogue to address national concerns, Kitur dismissed the debate around the necessity of the national dialogue concave as a distraction. He maintained that what was more important was supporting the government vision and ongoing reforms. He reiterated his full support for President William Ruto, stating that the current administration has a clear plan to steer the country towards economical growth and social transformation. Kitur pointed to labor exploitation or exportation as part of one of the government's key achievements. He revealed that more than 400,000 Kenyans have secured job opportunities abroad, crediting the government for creating international leakage and expanding the space for Kenyan professionalism to work overseas. According to him, this development has significantly boosted the country's labor export sector and helped address the rising unemployment rate among Kenyan youth. Touching on the fight against corruption, The MP argued that law enforcement institutions be equitably empowered to fulfill their mandate effectively. He emphasized the need to ensure that anti-government efforts remain impartial and free from tribal bias. Kitur called for equal application of the law across all communities and warned against using ethnicity as a shield for corrupt individuals.
Strides in the, what the president is doing to transform our country. And I support President William Ruto, not because I come from his backyard, but because Kenyans right now look at what plan do you have for a country, and then what are you doing about it? When we go back a bit, there was a time we had Kenyans complaining about the cost of living. If you remember very well, there even are times when people, famously would put sufurias on their heads. And there was mayhem around, in which case there was a NADCO, National Dialogue. Along the coast, we had the National Dialogue Committee, where then we brought in leaders to be able to have a conversation. What are these things that are really affecting our country, that then we can be able to have a discussion and the government of the day to be able to implement? And it was fully supported. It was brought into Parliament. We voted for it. A budget was given. A conversation was done. Some of the summary of the things that were done then was the aspect of IEBC, the formation of the selection panel, And that was done. We went even ahead until we now have the IEBC commissioners. Another discussion was the cost of living, which we all know. At the point in time we got into, the Kenya Kwanza government got into power, the cost of unga was very high. It's common knowledge. Look at it now, among as many other things, whether you're talking about sugar, the importation of those. And the government did make some, radical, steps, like for instance, subsidizing fertilizer, where I come from a region where we plant all these things, and indeed the impact of the same. I know we used to get about 44 million bags of maize, for instance. Right now we are doing 67, and at some point they're expecting almost 84 million bags. What has that done? The cost of living has come down. I did mention earlier that the figures never lie. We had an inflation of 9.6. Right now we are doing 3.8. Those are figures that never lie. Why? It came out of NADCO discussions. There was the issue of the two-third gender rule. That is also a matter that has not been finalized, so to say. There was conversations around the Senate terms and the issue of the counties in terms of the demarcations of the counties. There was the issue of the CDF, Senators and Women Fund, the formalization of the same into the Constitution. That is some of the things now that we're having a conversation a few minutes ago. So there was something that came out of that NADCO report. Some have been done, some are still in process. So as to whether it is important for us to have that debate right now is neither here nor there. However, you remember also when Raila Odinga agreed with President William Ruto on working together on the broad-based government, there was a 10-point agenda, most of which are still part of those that were discussed in this. But I also want to say, it is important to also be able to hear, over time, a national conversation is always good. But then, did it come out of, after the 7-7 or
but we've been talking
after
a good
finance
game
bill?
about all these national conversations. Oh, this will be the